Yeah, and this is a pattern using the especially adapted rose comb on the outer edges. As you can see, I've sealed the ceiling around the light fitting, the area I intend to Artex or texture onto. We're looking for this sheen before we texture onto the surface, because if I texture straight onto a matte, flat surface, this surface is quite porous. So as soon as I lay the texture onto the surface, it'll draw into the ceiling and it will not give you enough time to use your comb tools. So I've sealed the ceiling around the light fitting with something called, a paint called vinyl silk. And vinyl silk, once applied and dried, leaves a shiny area, which is ideal for comb patterns. I want to talk about the tools and materials we can use to create this pattern. First of all, we have a bucket of texture, which will be mixed to the correct consistency for comb tools. I've used a bumper. A bumper is a tool which is quite cheap, easy to use for occasional use, and basically that's it. And this is attached to a wooden broom handle, and you bump up and down the texture. Also, we require a bucket with some water in. This bucket here will be used to wash our bumper out and to blend the pattern in using a sponge. I got 3 standard texturing comb tools, the 10-inch, 6.5 inch and a 3.5 inch. We have a scraper, a metal blade scraper, and we have a corker. The scraper and corker I'm going to use together, and I'm going to actually apply the texture around the perimeter of the light rose fitting to put the texture onto the ceiling. We've got a water brush, you know, for washing down the tools and any blemishes, and we have a sponge for blending the texture pattern into the existing flat ceiling. And these are the tools required to do this particular pattern. As you can see now, the ceiling which I sealed around the perimeter of the rose is dried off, and that's good. Never attempt the texture onto wet sealer. You must let it dry off properly, adequately first. So this is nice and dry, so we will begin our pattern. And what we're going to do first is lay the texture onto the ceiling, about 11 inches around the perimeter of the rose. For the inverted rose, centre rose piece, we're going to use 3 texturing combs, standard texturing combs, a 10-inch standard texturing comb, a 6.5-inch standard texturing comb, and a 3.5-inch standard texturing comb. And we're going to create the inverted centre piece around the centre light fitting using these 3 tools. And of course, when the entire ceiling is painted, including the textured rose, all one colour, it'll look quite nice, and this saves you texturing your entire ceiling. You need to apply the texture on reasonably thick, and obviously it has to be as wide or a little bit wider than the width of the 10-inch comb that's going to go around the perimeter. And we'll have a look at that right now. So I lay this on. Take the 10-inch comb, I just lightly run it through the pattern. Don't use too much pressure, just let the comb do the work, and don't dig into the ceiling. For this particular centre rose effect, we're going to use 3 texturing combs. We're going to use a 10-inch standard texturing comb, and we're going to use a 6.5-inch rose comb, and we're also going to use a 3.5-inch rose comb. attractive pattern. That's if you don't want to do the entire ceiling with texture. And imagine if this ceiling and the textured rose, once dried, is painted all one colour. I've cut this specific 10-inch comb here, and I don't know if you can see, it's very deep. It's very deep. I'm looking for a deep finish on this pattern. I'm also going to use a 6.5-inch standard texturing comb to step down the comb, and then finally I'm going to use a 3.5-inch rose comb to create the pattern around the light. Yeah, and this is a pattern using the especially adapted rose comb on the outer edges. Looks quite attractive, I think. If you can imagine, once the texture is dry, you can paint the whole ceiling, the entire ceiling, plus the textured rose, all one colour, and all you're left with then is the texture centred effect around the light fitting, where you don't need to texture the entire ceiling. This centre piece was created using a 10-inch standard texturing comb, a 6.5-inch rose comb for the centre, and for the third tool down, the smallest comb, was a 3.5-inch standard texturing comb to create this centre rose fitting, or centre rose piece out of texture. And of course, when the entire ceiling is painted, including the textured rose, all one colour, it'll look quite nice, and this saves you texturing your entire ceiling.